everyone, and welcome to yet another video here on the YouTube channel as the Wrestle Kingdom week continues. This time today, we are talking Marigold First Dream 2026, the first Marigold show of the new year, headlined by Miku Aono versus Mai Sakurai for the Marigold World Championship and Takumi Iroha versus Mayu Iwatani for the GHC Women's Championship. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. Thank you for everyone that continues support. If you didn't see on the YouTube channel, I have put a big time post thing about what we have coming up in the coming days, coming weeks. It's a lot. I think that's the best way I could say it. It's a lot. It's been a lot, but I appreciate all of you that have watched and said so many nice comments and continue to watch because listen, I think 2026 will be a nice big time year for us here on the channel. Already has been, so we'll continue to do that the best we can. But that's enough of that. Let's get to our review today. And for the first time in a long time, I will not be doing this solo. I'm joined by my good friend Jamie Ross. Jamie, welcome back to I think the channel. I know you've been you've done a lot of stuff with me in the past. I know we used to do like my show. The show kind of like doesn't exist. We kind of just do this now. But everyone knows Jamie. It's the first time we're recording together in a long time, and I thought this was the perfect show to do that. So welcome back.
It's great to be back. It's great to be back, Scott. I've been out the game for a long, long time. You know, we started off 2025 in a nice swing of things with the Gold Star podcast, and then that very quickly came to an end. University life got the better of me, and then I struggled to get back into the old viewing habits. But as we spoke about before the show started, this time of the year for wrestling, of course, Wrestle Kingdom season and all the shows surrounding that period, I think it's the best time of the year to be a fan of Japanese wrestling. And I think to get back into the swing of things, and certainly with this Marigold First Dream show, was one that I was excited to jump back into the game on. And I knew if I was ever going to come back to the game of podcasting, I think it was going to be on this show. So I'm delighted to be here, delighted to be back on a podcast with you, Scott.
Hey, I'm happy to have you. I know that, like you said, you kind of been out of it a little bit, but I knew if we were gonna have you back, talking Marigold was gonna be a good one for you. I know it's something that you can sink your teeth into a little
Oh, yeah.
bit, and I think that's kind of what you're looking for, especially if you've been out of the game for a while. You kind of want to challenge yourself. You want to be able to watch a show and think of not only what happened, but what's going to happen, where we're going, and all that. And I think Marigold does a good job at that with their pay-per-views. And First Dream 2026 proved to be another strong show. I thought it was as good of a kickoff to the new year as they could have asked for.
Mm-hmm.
What are your impressions on Marigold these days? Because I think the last time you and me had talked about it, it was around the time Mayu came in, and it's a different promotion now for the better because of course her involvement, but I think everyone has really picked up their game since she's joined.
Yeah, I think I think the show kind of set it out in a good way for me in terms of what I'm looking forward to for Marigold and where they're at as a promotion as we start 2026. I think a big part of why I enjoy watching them so much is seeing the progression of some of these lesser known talents. We just spoke before the show started about how few of the featured wrestlers that maybe if you go back 2 years ago. Outside of the Utamis and of course Mayu Iwatani's. But so yes, we're seeing of course the young class of rookies and the talent from Act Rest develop. Has been really great to see. Of course, the addition of Mayu Iwatani is always going to benefit the promotion, and you're seeing that in the level she's been able to bring out of the likes of Kimomo Manami, Hummingbird, just a few weeks back in that Superfly match. And I think this show set out a good direction for 2026 in terms of elevating a couple of talents. I think one of the weaknesses of Marigold in their early life as a promotion has been they haven't been as top heavy, but as they've needed to be in order to run these shows, built on homegrown talent. And I think now you're starting to see certain wrestlers elevated. Of course, we're going to get into each match as we go along, but I think the likes of Chika Goto, Koki Amare being back is certainly another big one. Of course, the evolution of Mai Sakurai as a main event talent. But I think as you know, we kick off 2026. I think it's about seeing those wrestlers elevated and what
Mhm.
sort of I think if you ask me, if we do this show this time next year for First Dream 2027, I think we'll see a very interesting main event scene in Marigold, and I think
Yeah.
that's going to be what I'm looking forward to. I think as the year progresses.
Yeah, I think with them, a lot of 2025 and for the good side of things was stabilizing, the roster top to bottom, and I think what they accomplished to do was, you add Mayu, you lose Nanai, of course, but adding Mayu, just changes everything. And you debut super rookie after super rookie, you debut Yuki Yamazaki, who's a fantastic rookie, and then everyone else just keeps getting better. Like, it is the perfect storm of what could have gone right for them. And now as we head into this year and you look at this card, I think it's time, you take more chances on certain wrestlers and knowingly, by the time we are back on pay-per-view for Shine Forever in May, one of those wrestlers that are in the first half of the card could very well be in the main events, like
Mhm.
that is kind of what this roster is built to do, and I think that's why I have so much fun watching these shows, reviewing these shows, and talking about these shows. And it gets pretty easy to me when it's in terms of like, all right, who's up next? We watch Mai Sakurai in the main event. SYOKO Koshino gets a big United National title match. But in terms of how we're going to talk about this show, I mean, we are going to start at the very top, and that allows me to tell everyone to go check out the Suri Yamaoka, the first anniversary of the Super Rookie video right here on the channel. Looking at her entire year, it's an hour and 26 minutes of me talking about one of my favorite wrestlers in the world. So, I mean, it's a great time for me. But please, 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 if you haven't, go check that out because that brings us into our first match. Of course, the anniversary being celebrated here. It was Suri Yamaoka, Shino, and Coco taking on Kazuna Tanaka, Kamamo Manami, and Yuka Yamazaki. So putting young Marigold in the opening match, I think, is a fascinating idea to get the things off on the right foot, right? Um,
Mhm.
it was a year ago where Sariyami Oka made her debut in the first match on First Stream, the first match of 2025 for Marigold, and she won the last major match at the end of the year in the Rookie of the Year tournament. I have talked about Sariya Mioka at as much as maybe anyone has in at least in the content sphere, and
Mhm.
I will continue to do so, don't you worry, folks. But the reason is, and Jamie, you know this, she's just so special. And
Oh
when
yeah.
you have someone as special as Suri Yamaoka, you need to give the proper appreciation, respect, because I think what people may be missing if they're not watching Marigold is someone as special as any prospect we have seen in professional wrestling in years, let alone just Joshi.
Yeah, she's exceptional. I spoke at the start of the show about me getting back into the podcast game. Siri Yamaoka got me back into the writing game as well at the tail end of last year. So just easily one of the best, if not the best outright prospects we've seen in wrestling in I don't know how many years. And I love the choice of this match to kick off the show. As he's touched on, how we kicked off 2025. I think it's kind of a bit of a full circle moment. Of course, we kicked off last year. Seri Yamaoka was the super rookie, and now, of course, we have more than one super rookie in Marigold, but a whole rookie class of exciting talent. And I think she kind of stands at the top of that in terms of just how exciting she is as a wrestler to follow. I mean, we'll get into the match itself, but the raw athleticism, the skill, the technique, the wrestling background that she brings. I think everyone in this match had something different. But I think as exciting as all six women are in this match here, I think you come away from this knowing that Seri Yamaoka is the one that is.
Yeah.
I think out of all of them, the most ready for major things in 2026.
Yeah, there is never gonna be a rookie year like hers in terms of,
Hmm.
just my viewing as someone who watched all 99 matches she had. It was just every single match was either her growing or something new. It was just exceptional to watch, and that's not to take away from anyone else because this match is full with talent. They kind of gave her team, the kind of the super trio, her, Shino, and Coco. And for those who may have not watched some of the recent stuff, and this was your first time seeing Coco, you're watching someone who is lucha trained, someone who is going to be an incredible talent herself, and is kind of like a complete difference maker in terms of the young Marigold crew. Obviously, she's not an official member of the roster, but the fact that they put her in this match and put her on that team tells me they have high hopes for her as well.
Hmm.
And then, I don't want to disrespect Shino whatsoever. Shino is fantastic. Shino's the type of person you could see get, the moment she's ready and not in school anymore, just to go on a super
Oh yeah.
run of some sort. And to just flip it onto the other side, I think Kazuna Tanaka, Tomoe Minami, and Yuki Yamazaki entered this match knowing they were kind of seen as the underdogs against the super trio.
Hmm.
And I think they did a great job at shining, especially Yuki Yamazaki. This is now the second time in the past week that Yuki Yamazaki is kind of getting this big showcase against Suri Yamioka in a meaningful match. They did it on the Rookie of the Year tournament as well. And I think that may play uh down the line in terms of, maybe her molding of, okay, like I need to figure this out because she brings it to Seri, which is a great
Hmm.
thing. But she just keeps coming up a little bit short. Um, you could talk about the other 5 competitors here before we get to the match itself and just like what you think from them because I know, we could sit here and talk about Yamaoka for another hour. Um, but how are you enjoying the rest of the young Marigold, especially from this match? I think it was a great night overall for them
Hmm.
between these 6 and Rhea Seto and um, Victoria Yuzuki, but highlighting these other 5.
Yeah, as I said before, this is my favorite part of Marigold, at least in recent times, of the development of the young talent. Yuki Yamazaki, anyone who refers to herself as the Mad Dog, I'm a fan of the Yakuza games. I'm immediately endeared. And I love as I said, everyone brings a different style. She's got a bit of a brawler style to her, which is, differentiates herself from the rest of the pack here. Of course, both Shino and Kazuna Tanaka, second generation stars we've seen, in singles matches between them, and how much they're both coming on. Kazuna, of course, one of the more experienced in this
Yeah.
in this match, which makes me feel old. Uh, um, and then Kamoma Manami, one of my favorite wrestlers in Marigold. I always shout out my friend Lewis, our good friend Lewis, when Kamomo comes up. But I think her development has been really fun to follow. Of course, taken
Mm,
under the wing a little by the greatest of all time, Mayu Iwatani,
yeah.
which can never be a bad thing for a wrestler's
Doesn't hurt.
prospects. And I think you're starting to see that development in her game. The drop kicks, every match she's having now, she's seeing elevating her game. And of course, I think a superfly match down the line is certainly on the cards. And then Coco, as you said, what a revelation, of course, coming into Marigold shows in 2025. Of course, I'm not even entirely sure of a home promotion off the top of my head, but hopefully, more and more she'll be involved on these shows for the
Yeah.
foreseeable future, because I think she's an exceptional talent, and as I said, for all the other 5, brings something so unique to the table here, and she had a great showcase. But I really enjoyed this for what it was. I think it was the perfect way to kick off not just this show, but the whole year, in terms of setting
Mhm.
out what we're going to do in 2026. And the future is incredibly bright in Marigold.
Yeah, something tells me that, at least one of these wrestlers won't be opening the show next year on this show,
Mhm.
but very well could be as far as the main event.
Oh,
But
yeah.
talking about the match itself, just highly competitive, highly entertaining, giving a showcase to each wrestler in their own right. You have Coco doing the lucha and just kind of jaw-dropping style. You have Shino and Kazuna, mixing it up, which is always, I think, great because of their connection. And I think the crazy thing about Shino, who we might have talked about the least so far, is I think, with Shino, everyone kind of knows, right? It's like
Mhm.
it's her and Yamioka, kind of the pillars of this future, and then everyone else. Um, she had the least offense in on her team. She took some of the heat for them, which I think was important because, she is someone who I think in time is just going to be like this undeniable phenomenal champion. But to
Mhm.
learn for her, especially as someone who is kind of part-time with how they work still, right? Because she still has to go to school
Yeah.
and things like that. I think she's doing all the right things. So I thought this was a really strong showing from really all 6, but, the match, like, flipped on its head, of course, when Yamioka got tagged in,
Mhm.
and she just did her thing, including 2 unbelievable spears to poor Yuka Yamazaki in the closing stretch. I watched those and I was like, "Oh my god, dude." I the second one she hit, I was like, I understand why it's not her finisher. I'm happy it's not because then she could just hit him whenever she wants. But oh my god, like, that was like Yuki Yamazaki might be broken in half. Um, in the end, Suriyami gets the pin, gets them off on the good note, and you just have such a solid trios match to kick things off. Like you said, focusing on the young talent is what Marigold does best, I think,
Mhm.
than maybe any other promotion in terms of focusing on their young talent. And I think there's purpose in kicking off your year with them at the show, getting showcased in the first match of the year.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you touched on the spear because for a moment I thought Bron Breakker had hit the ring in this match, but I love this as part of her arsenal. Like you said, it not being the finisher means we can just get it
Yeah,
whenever
yeah,
whenever she feels like it. She has a bunch of moves like that are just um, jaw dropping, and that's the athleticism, the natural talent she brings. Um, and yes, Shino, I didn't touch as much on Shino, but I think those two, her and Yamaoka, are kind of destined to lead this promotion into the future. I
yeah.
think they're going to do battle over the red belt one day in the future.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and I think it's going to be exceptional. Like once she's around more,
Mhm.
it's full steam ahead. But even now on this semi regular schedule, it's already clear to see that we have a very very special talent on our hands. And I think while Seri is, of course, she has the tools to be the kind of more dominant of the two in terms of her in ring style. I think Shino is kind of like a babyface underdog. It's going to be something special to follow in the next
Yeah.
couple of years. So I'm incredibly excited to follow all 6 of these wrestlers as we move on, and a really great way to open this show.
Yeah, I just wanna, follow up on this. I had the theory, in the Rookie of the Year tournament following the Sanka Katsuki loss that Shayri would just start to get a little more dominant.
Hmm.
Um, she took a lot of punishment from Yuka, and which is great because 'cause they're giving Yuka a lot of shine, and then
Yeah.
she just says, "Alright, enough." And, she hits the big spine buster, she hits the incredible drop kick. I keep saying it, but she's the most explosive wrestler I've seen in a long
Yeah.
time. Everything just has massive purpose, so great to see her kick things off. If I had a prediction, any prediction this time next year, she is in a top 3 match on the card.
Hmm.
I think that's confidently, the track we're on with her, which is always very exciting. But we will get to our next match, which involved the returns of Natsumi Shozuki, Koki Amare. Great to see them both back. They teamed with Hummingbird to take on Naoshikawa, Mooka Hanazono, and Nagisa Tachibana. I think anytime you get returns, especially returns that are 2 wrestlers that I think are very important to the promotion, it's a great thing to celebrate. And I think you're getting 2 very different people coming back in terms of their importance to the card, their importance to the shows. First up is Koki Amari, who's, of course, dealt with plenty of injury over the past year. It was First Dream 2025 where she had torn that ACL and was out until Shine Forever, and then, of course, hurt it I think her collarbone,
Hmm.
um, later in the year, so just a lost year for Koki Amari. You kinda look at 2025, we move on from that. She puts that behind her. You could see it and why she was so emotional when this match was over. And on the other side, Natsumi Shizuki, someone who I think this roster is going to desperately love having
Hmm.
back in terms of what she brings to the table. You know, this is a veteran you can put in any match, right? You can put her in the world, you can put her in the Superfly, you're at national, and she's going to do great things. And I think this match kinda is like, for me, the ultimate showcase of the growth of Marigold over the past year. While we could talk about young Marigold all the time, it's the mid-range wrestlers, right? I think that you were looking to make a step up, and while I think Shizuki at the time was already seen as at a high regard, it's the other 4 that belong to the roster, and then welcome back Momoka Hanazono, who's, of course, here for the injured Minami Yuki. When you're seeing Hummingbird have a better look and Nagisa Tachibana have a better look, and now Shikawa be as good as she is, it's just great to see. You know, this match wasn't a complete miss or anything. I think it was 1, better than expected, and 2, just reestablished both Shizuki and Koki in a very strong way. So I'm excited to see what they do now that they're back in the shuffle.
Hmm. Yeah, I think this was mostly a positive for Marigold in terms of what it adds back to the promotion. Of course, I think I've spoken a bunch of a bunch of times with you about how Natsumi Shozuki is Marigold's most consistent and useful wrestler. Into for exactly the reasons you just laid out. You can place her anywhere on the card. You know she's going to bring it all week in week out, and she's been such a miss. And I'm very excited to see what she gets up to in the next couple of months. And as you know, she's going to be such a big addition. And then of course Koki Amare. Immediately, but when the actress talents came to Marigold, I think it was pretty clear that Marigold saw a lot in Koki Amare. But I did think she took a little bit of time to get, to really hit her stride. And right as she was picking up great form,
Mhm.
is when she was out of action. So it was a bit of brutal timing. But I'm very excited to also see her back, and I think they both got off to a strong start to the year. I think Koki is going to be a major addition to the I think the main event scene of Marigold. I think if she can pick up back where she left off, um, right before her injury, we could certainly see her up into the white belt scene at the very least in 2026 and maybe beyond for red belt challenges. But also just in terms of the other 4 here, of course, Hanazono, one of the few outside talents on this show. But I've been impressed with a lot of these wrestlers over the past couple of months from what I have seen. Hummingbird, of course, I remember her her debut in the Superfly match with Shozuki. It wasn't exactly the hottest start that I've seen for a wrestler, but she's picked up some nice form. Of course, Superfly match with Mayu Iwatani is always a boost, and that was certainly the best match of her career thus far. Nagisa Tachibana is someone who, we just spoke about 6 incredibly talented rookies that Marigold have on her roster, and she's certainly on the less developed end of with her peers in terms of the rookie class. But I'm endeared by her progress because I think one, of course, she's been so open about kind of the struggles in her personal life, but also you can see that she gives it her all every
Yeah.
single time, and each and every match you're seeing that improvement from her. And I thought that was that was all the same in this one. And then now Ishikawa has always been one of she's when Marigold first kicked off, of course, with Nanai, she was in kind of an elevated spot, and she's kind of fallen down at the card a little bit as things have progressed. But she's still a very useful wrestler
Yeah.
to Marigold, and I always appreciate seeing her on these shows. Um, Hanazono, of course, brings both combination of the high speed and the comedy elements that I think were certainly fun to watch in this. Of course, a lot of fun interactions with Hummingbird. I wouldn't mind seeing a little Superfly match in the future between those two if they can bring her back
Yeah.
into the fold. But I think in terms of what this set out to do, in terms of re-establishing the 2 returnees as key players for the foreseeable future, I think this served its purpose and was a fun match.
Yeah, a fun match. Again, not one you're maybe gonna remember in terms of, like, the overall quality, but it's important in terms of reestablishing those 2. 2026 is gonna be a fascinating year for Koki. It's been a lot of ups and downs. It feels like she was trying to get back to that form the last time she came back from injury. She came back really quickly from that ACL, And then after the Dream Star, she instantly gets hurt again. And it's like, okay, man, that's tough timing for her. So it'll be fascinating to see what her year looks like. I think they've been very open, like, they want her to figure things out because there is obvious star power that comes with Koki and Mare. There's potential there, but, you know, as we see her tag team partner continue to kinda get the spots that she was probably once upon a time more expected to get, it
Mhm.
makes you question where are we going, what comes up. So, I think that'll be one of the more fascinating parts of the new year. But let's move on to our next match, and that, of course, is none other than Megaton versus Kei, who is, of course, Kurashio, Tokyo, Japan. I don't think uh, anyone that after Minoru Suzuki at the Grand Destiny show, I think the idea of maybe him coming in this time made a lot of sense, and that is exactly what he did. I made the joke, and I think this actually plays a lot to how she reacts the rest of the night. But for anyone like that watched Mass Fiesta, you know how much Utami Hayashishita just loves this entrance because she did it herself. In her mask, she just loves it. And I was like, she's in the next match, and I know she's just staring at that monitor. Like she doesn't care about anything else. She's like, I'll put my jacket on in a second. We'll go and wrestle Go Cheek in a moment. But this listen, Megaton's here for one thing, and that is to entertain the masses. And Megaton, funnily enough, might be the most over person in the entire company because these fans love Megaton. They want her to win so freaking bad. And the way they did this just had me laughing. And that's what was the purpose. It's not going to be anything you may remember in a week or two, but you remember laughing. I think the Minoru Suzuki one was actually just like a fascinating match. This was pure comedy. Megaton going for the same thing 3 different times and losing all three. Though she did have a little more life in the second or in the third match, I should
Mhm.
say. And I think he did a great job at kind of like just selling it every time he pinned her. He's like, "Oh, all right, see ya," and then just keep going and going. Um, yeah, I don't have much more to say about it. It's just if it has its role, it has its role on the show. It gets the crowd into it. I don't hate that whatsoever, and if I'm able to laugh along the way, then it's a job well done by both of them.
Yeah, I think you've kind of said it perfectly. There's not a great deal of analysis to be done here. These things kind of are what they are. I'm far from the biggest, lover of comedy wrestling, but I will
Yeah,
say that I
yeah,
think Megaton absolutely serves her purpose. On
yeah,
these shows in particular, I think
yeah,
these pay-per-views are where she shines. If they can continue to use her in this manner, I think kind of like third, fourth match on the card, break the action up a little bit. Of course, the crowd are super into it, and you get a fun surprise each time. I thought. I always struggle. I always just call him Ikemen I struggle to
yeah. I do the
giving him the
same.
full title, but I thought he was a fun surprise here, and kind of like we've said, served its purpose in terms of giving the crowd a laugh and provide something a little bit different on the night.
I really wish that, like, when his first entrance ended, that Utami came out and, like, doing the thing. I think that would have been the funniest thing they could have done. If she wasn't wrestling the match after, it would have been like, yeah, you gotta send her out there,
Yeah,
because it's just so funny. But yeah, I mean, you and me both, when it comes to comedy wrestling, it's not our thing
mhm.
necessarily, but I think Megaton does a really good job at it. And it helps that the crowd's always engaged with her matches, so I think that goes a
Yeah,
long way in terms of making them, more enjoyable. But let's kinda get to now the big 5 matches of this card, and that's, of course, brings in Utami Hayashishita, who went one-on-one with Chika Goto. I think there's so many different directions to go when talking about this match, um, and I am often I feel like not as much as my good friend Dylan, but I feel like I'm in the defend Utami camp
mhm.
most of the time these days, and I feel like it's for a match like this that kind of perfectly illustrates that. Um Chikagoto is someone who is rising, right? They have given her singles matches now against Sari, Miku Aono, and Utami Hashishita in pretty much their last 3 major events. Those are the last 3 world champions of this company. Those are the first 3 world champions of this company, and they are putting Go Chica in matches to prove herself against them. And I think what Go Chica did on this show, on this match, was rise to the occasion. And I think a lot of the credit goes to Utami, who decided, I am going to bump like crazy for this woman. I am going to make everything she does look like $1,000,000 from the word go. Utami took like maybe 25% of this match offensively. It was the Go Chica show from the
Mhm.
word go. And they had their comedic moments, I think, leading up to this that I found very funny. The measuring from hip to hip, and Go Chica cuts this passionate promo on the Korakuen last week, and Utami just like looks at her and then walks away. She's like, yeah, whatever. And then like Utami tweeted right before their match because Go Chica has a photo book out. She's like, I'm gonna beat you and then I'm gonna enjoy the photo book. And it's like Utami Utami is born to just do the bits and have a good time. She loves it. You can just see it every time. And I think Utami had such a wonderful night in doing that, whether it was the match, whether it was the post match, whether it was later in the night and how much fun she had with that. This is the Utami that I love because I think people want to try to tell me Utami's bad. She's not, by the way. She's actually far from it. And it's why she's so important to this promotion is that she can go into a match like this with Go Chica and make Go Chica look so good even in defeat. That's a hard thing to do, I think, in wrestling these days, is making someone look great in defeat and doing so in a way where you still kind of look dominant. Utami took all of the offense. She even tried to do the hip attack back to Go Chica, which made me laugh. She just kind of launched herself, and I was like, that was funny. Um, but she made everything Go Chica did look like death, leading to, we got the big choke slam for the great near fall. Everyone really got into that one. They're like, oh my god, is Go Chica about to win this? Which I thought was great. And then she kind of shows off at the end, doing the deadlift German, and then she gets up and just starts flexing the rest of the way out. She's like, yeah, you damn right I did that. Um, yeah, I love Go Chica. I think she's like the success story of Marigold through this point. It's either her or Mai Sakurai, obviously, in terms of like the most improved wrestlers, especially for wrestlers that I think people kind of didn't really count on to be as big as stars as they are. So it's really lovely to see Ko Chica get another opportunity and shine in doing so. And I give her as much credit, of course, as I give Utami in this match. Jamie, let me ask you twofold question. You can answer either one in your order. One, what are your thoughts on Go Chica? And two, how do you feel about Utami these days? Because I do think like so many people are against her for some reason, but
Mhm.
I feel like a performance like this kind of shuts that down.
Yeah, so first on Chika Goto, I'm a huge fan. I have been from the offset. I think you could see a kind of natural charisma from her first appearances in Marigold that's obviously developed, and I think the clash with Utami here was really fun, and we saw that. You talk about someone getting the ball and kind of running with it. Of course, we
Yeah.
just spoke about Kohi and the kind of um, stop start, like career she's had in Marigold thus
Yeah.
far, and of course the big long absence in 2025 kind of allowed Chika Goto to sort of step into her own as a singles wrestler. Um, and I think you've seen her development in each of these matches with the former Marigold World Champions. That she's someone who I think is ready to continue to be elevated. Um, her offense is looking stronger with each performance, and that charisma, of course, carries her a long way as well. And I think she's such an exciting wrestler to watch. She brings something different to the roster, like I've said with a lot of the talent on this show. And I thought it was a really nice clash with Utami, a fun power battle. And yeah, someone who I'm definitely looking forward to seeing continue to rise up the card. It'll be interesting to see now how she's used with Koki back in the fold. I think, of course, Twin Tower would probably be the tag team champions, or certainly would have had those had those belts by now if Koki wasn't out of action. But of course, both of them have got such a lot to give as singles talent. So I hope if they do go back down the tag team route, that it's not at the expense of Go Chica as a singles wrestler,
Yeah.
because I think there's so much she can provide to this promotion. And on Utami, my first thought as you're running through how this match progressed is Utami is. She is a comedy wrestler whose natural talent has forced her to lock in. She's she's of course one of she was the super rookie back in the day in Stardom, but every time she's out there and is able, if she's not in the kind of main event scene, the charisma and the bits that she leans into is some of my favorite work that she does. But I think I'm in an interesting spot with Utami. I'm I think she hasn't had the strongest of the last couple of years in terms of her peak in Stardom, but I also think she's in a different environment. I spoke before about how Marigold's main event scene hasn't always had a great number of challenges. Of course, we have a couple of regular names, and there are more joining that list. But she's had to defend the world championship against the likes of Tank, and I don't think she's been set up to have the classics that she has as consistently in Stardom back in the day. But I also do think that some of the criticism is a little too harsh. But how much of that is the kind of natural agendas against Marigold as a whole? There are of course a lot of tribalism in the Joshi scene these days, which I'm not the biggest fan of. But I think you saw here that she's still absolutely one of the best in the world. She's such a given performance, which I thought was the perfect way to go about this. I wasn't sure if that's what we were going to get. Of course, coming back, dropping that Red Belt title still relatively recently, and what direction were they going to take in this match? But I was a little surprised to see how much she was willing to give to Go Chica, and I think it's one of the big qualities of Utami Hayashishita as a wrestler. But I think this performance showed that she's still absolutely capable of being at the top of her game, and I think 2026 will be an interesting year for her. Seeing what direction she takes. Of course, we'll see at the end of the show what's in the immediate future for her. But it'll be interesting to see how she navigates the year. How quickly will she find herself back into the Red Belt title picture? Will she maybe go down a different route? Could she, find herself in a tag team scene, or will she go after a number of different belts? Who knows? But I am a big fan, of course, of Utami Hayashishita, and this was another reminder for those doubting her of her quality.
Yeah, I don't know how many more main eventers are as giving as her. I look back to the Miku Aono title match as like she did everything to make Miku Aono kind of look like the ultimate in that win. And she does the same here for Go Chica, who's still losing, but doing so in a way that, she's building from it. And I'm just naturally very excited for Utami, because I do think that this year, last year she had to be the world champion. Like it wasn't that she just was. She had to be. Coming off Sari, Julia had left so quickly. Nanai was retiring. Utami needed to be the world champion, and do so in a way that it may have hurt her along the way, because like you said, the main event now compared to then is very different, especially the first 6 months of her reign. If she was world champion, if she just became world champion now, I think it's a different conversation that people are having. Ultimately, there's a lot of exciting matchups. But I do think for her, I think her year is going to be super enjoyable, because she's going to be kind of their Swiss Army knife. It's like, okay, we need you to help build up Go Chica. Then we have to have you in a title match. And then you're going to go do tag stuff because you're so good at that. Utami's one of the best tag wrestlers, I think, on the planet. And it's again kind of plays to what you said. She just happens to be like Utami Hayashishita, so she can't just do like these other things that she clearly loves to do, right? Her personality jumps off the page when she gets to do other things. So I think that's like fascinating to me, and I think she's in the ideal role post world title that I'm just left very excited to see what she does the rest of the year. So this was a complete success of a match. I just want to say that as well. I think for what they set out to do, it was a win. And I thought this was, up until this point, the best match on the show. I just think they did a really good job between this and the opener. It's why you're so excited, I think, about this promotion. So yeah, good job by both of them. And now we move on to the big 4 title matches, beginning with the Darkness Summit, as they called it, the Misa Matsui Chiaki versus Nagisa Nozaki and Rhea Seto Twin Star championship match. I think for a lot of people, this was like, we're doing double Darkness Revolution. That's interesting. And I'm a big supporter of really all of them because I think they bring a certain vibe that
Mhm.
is important to the promotion. Like, yeah, I understand people that are like they're just over like heel stuff overall in wrestling and maybe overall in Japan, between House of Torture and Hate and now Darkest Revolution. Like, I get that. But I think they're just so much fun. Like these four, like Chiaki is the most unserious person of all time. Like she's like, yeah, I'm kind of a heel, but I have a smile on at all times, and I kind of just love to be here. Misa Matsui's kind of that way too, which I love about their dynamic. It's why I like them being the tag champs rather than Nozaki and Chiaki, because I think Nozaki kind of working with the young Rhea Seto is doing a lot of good for Rhea Seto, who
Mhm.
Jamie, I know this is very important for you. You were a Rhea Seto believer for a long time. You've been big on the Black Diamonds, so this is a
Oh
very
yeah.
exciting conversation. Um, but I think the match, like for what the expectations were, you have double heels who are both gonna cheat. They had a lot of fun with it. And the
Mhm.
closing stretch between Matsui and Rhea Seto was really well done. Um, I just want to add before I kick it over to you, the sending Misa Matsui down the ramp on a cart at full speed and Rhea Seto snapping her in the face with the whip. That was crazy. I was like, is
Yeah.
she okay? Is she gonna make it? Like that looked rough. She just kept going like it was nothing. But I was like, oh my god, that was terrifying. But Jamie, I'll ask you in terms of just maybe Darkness Revolution as a whole, but of course, just the parts that make the group up. How do you feel about them? They are the only faction as well in this company, so I think that gives them a unique status too.
Mhm. Yeah, I think like you kind of laid out, they serve their purpose in this promotion and they provide something different. And I think you saw it on this show again, another completely different match. The kind of chaotic elements that we saw, the brawling outside the ring, and of course all the shenanigans that come with the usual Darkness Revolution matches. But I think each of them have their own qualities they bring to the table. I've been a big fan of Misa Matsui from the offset. I think she's one of the more underrated talents in Joshi wrestling you'll find anywhere. And I think she's someone who I think if she continues to be given opportunities, will certainly be capable of rising up this card because I think that the talent she has um, is exceptional. So I'm always glad to see her moving up the spots on these pay-per-views, of course, in one of the title matches on the show. And Chiaki, of course, who's been a very strong part of the Twin Star division from the offset, of course, originally with Nozaki and now Misa Matsui. I think is another fun talent to see develop. Of course, Nagisa Nozaki, one of them, the more experienced here, and what she's been able to add to Rhea Seto, as you kind of laid out, is has been really a really big positive for Rhea. I think she's someone who I think Marigold should continue to invest in. Of course, I'm a big believer. I remember back in the original days of the Gold Star podcast, I had an identity crisis where I came to realize that I don't actually have my wrestler. I have a lot of wrestlers that I'm a big fan of.
Yeah,
Of course, got Mayu Iwatani goes without saying, and Six had Natsupoi and kind of Cosmic Angels in
yeah,
general. Um, so I kind of found myself beginning to root for Rhea Seto, the Black Diamond. I took a shine. Um, and you know what? I think 2025 was a phenomenal year to be invested in the Black Diamond. I think her evolution as a wrestler is my favorite part of Darkness Revolution. Certainly,
yeah,
what she's been able to provide to the group. The kind of her submission game that's been developing of late. I love her cattle mutilation. We got to see it in this match.
yeah,
One of my favorite submissions that we have here on the Marigold roster. And I thought she was great. Like you said before, the closing stretch with Misa Matsui was absolutely the highlight of this, and just kind of continue to show by both of them our
mhm,
talents to continue to invest in certainly. So I thought this was a lot of fun, and I think Darkness Revolution are certainly a fun act. I'll be interested to see. I think I've mentioned it since the inception of the promotion, but um, I feel like it's inevitable that Marigold will eventually go down a faction route, and I'm interested to see when they kind of begin to put the pieces together for
yeah.
the remainder of the groups that could blossom. I think there are some natural connections, but also I think there are certain there are always fun dynamics to play out when they kind of throw these things together. But I think for now, Darkness Revolution being the sole unit, I think makes them a fun a fun group to follow. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think this definitely served its purpose. So I enjoyed this for what it was. Kind of
Yeah.
met my expectations of what I thought these four could provide, but gave me a little bit more than I was hoping for with the closing stretch.
Yeah, and I also wanna just give, credit to Matsui and Chiaki. I think they're doing a very good job at reestablishing, the twin star belts. They've had a lot of defenses in a very short amount of time since Grand Destiny, it feels like, or a lot of just tag matches as a whole, and I think what they're doing is just putting on quality tag matches. They may not be like even a year ago, Nanai and,
Mhm,
Yamaoka's level, which I think was just so high. But I think the Twin Star belts for the first year of the company's existence were the best belts in the company. And then, once the belts kinda went to Magenta, it kinda paused that for a while. Not to anyone's fault, it's just timing
mhm,
wise, you put the belts on some an outside, tag team that is also, around Dream Star season. It's hard to do a lot of that, and,
mhm,
they also turned heel, like, right as that was all going on, so that was not helping, the complications of that, but I think what these 2 are doing is setting a good foundation once again. I think Chiaki's made herself a really good tag wrestler, and, teaming
mhm.
with Misa Matsui does her a lot of good because Misa Matsui can kinda carry the work rate, so to speak, of things and do it very well. Um but overall, I think for these 4, they continue to elevate, they continue to work together very well, and that's gonna do a lot of good for them. I liked putting them together, in this show because I just think it was a good spot for them, especially with, what the big 3 matches were. But
Mhm.
after the match, we did get the official challenge. It will be the Super Suriyama Yoka and Shino challenging for the Twin Star Championships. Guy like me is giving them the belt, but hey,
Oh
that's
yeah.
I'm just saying. The best part of the entire thing was Chiaki's like, "All right, let's do it at the 12th at Cork and Hall," and Shino gets on the mic. I can't. I have school. And I was like, "Yes, we finally have a reason to bring that up." I think that's hysterical. It's just like I would love to, but I literally can't. I can't make it to the show. So instead, they will face off at the Marigold January 24th Korakuen show, which just happens to be the Mayu Iwatani 15th anniversary Icon Forever show, a show that I think many eyes are going to be on. So I think it's brilliant to put those 2 into the big match on that show. And I feel kind of good about them potentially winning. I know they beat Chiaki Misamatsui in the Twin Star Cup, but they haven't lost yet. Like, that's one thing I think that's overlooked. These 2 as a tandem have yet to lose. They've started to team up, since Shino debuted, and they just win and win and win and win, and let's kinda get crazy, let's just go with the supers,
Mhm.
2026 is a year where we're just going with the future in this promotion, but I think that's gonna be a lot of fun, potentially, in that semi-main event on that show.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think on on wanting these two to pick up the twin star belts. As much as I've enjoyed the Darkness Revolution pairing, um,
That's why you give belts to heels, to put these kind of wrestlers
exactly.
over.
If you don't have that long term goal in mind, then what we doing here. This is what it's all about. I think this would be the perfect title switch. I think in terms of what it would have kind of allowed these two to do for the early portion of 2026, I think it would be great. I think if you want to kind of continue to see them develop, but also maybe you want to hold back slightly on Seri in particular in terms of pushing her up the card. I think you want to. I think towards the latter stages of 2026 as well, I think we'll really see her begin to push for those top 2 um, belts in this promotion. But I think while you're kind of allowing others to have those opportunities, I think you need to keep her busy and keep her with gold. So the twin star belts is certainly a way to do that. The only thing that I think will potentially restrict them from making that choice is how much they lean on Shido not being around as much. But like you brought up with Magenta, we've seen twin star champions who aren't as active in the promotion. Certainly, so I think there's, I think she'll be around enough to have a more than strong reign with those belts. And as far as potential champions go, I don't think you can get a more exciting pair than these two, the super rookies of Marigold, as the Twin Star champions. So hopefully they pick up that gold. And also, I love the idea of this being on the Mayu Iwatani show. It reminds me a little, of course, it's not a retirement show, God forbid, but it reminds me a little bit of the John Cena retirement show in terms of
Right, put in the rookies, yeah.
showcasing these two, of course, the future of the
Right.
promotion,
Mhm.
on a night that, of course, centered around Mayu Iwatani and celebrating her career. But I think that's a great thing to do in terms of building on what we've got in this promotion. So very, very exciting times, and I think we're both rooting for the Supers to pick up those belts.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I just think they're just so fantastic, and there's an argument that these two are legitimately the most exciting part of a promotion
Mhm.
with lots of exciting pieces.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that goes well, and I think we're in for a really fun title match when we get there. I liked their Twin Star final, so that should be a lot of fun. But next up, I think was the biggest experiment of the entire
Mhm.
night, and that was the United National Championship match: Victoria Yuzuki versus SYOKO Koshino. I had said leading up to the match to friends, I said in the preview, I was like, I don't know. I just think this is going to be kind of sick. I was like, I just have a feeling, people kind of doubting SYOKO Koshino because, people know who Flying Penguin is. Um, and she's never really had this big opportunity. And I just said, like, I don't know, I'm watching these preview tags between the two, and Yuzuki's just kind of out of her mind. So like there's a combination here that's gonna make this kind of sick. And it was like exactly like the best case scenario for me. Like, was the match perfect? No. But was it kind of raw as hell? Yeah, it sure was. Was it
Yeah.
kind of nasty? Oh, it sure was. There is something to be said about the confidence of Victoria Yuzuki that is just there is swagger there. There is just the way she was treating SYOKO in this match was insanity to me. I was like, "Oh my god, she thinks she's like the top dog no matter what." She is walking around, she just has like this look on her face like, "I am going to kill you" type thing. I was like, "What is?" And someone had tweeted like, "When did Victoria Yuzuki become a stone cold killer?" I was like, Mai Sakurai changed her, man.
Yeah.
Like Mai Sakurai brought some Judaism to that match, and they never looked back. Um, I need to give credit to SYOKO Kushino, who's actually the one that started this match off on that foot.
Mhm.
They go right to the outside. They terrify me by they go she goes for a power bomb and she falls back, and they're right back at it though. It was, you could say it was like an electric chair drop thing if you've ever seen that move back in like the WWE SmackDown versus Raw days.
Mhm.
That's that I was like, okay, that's fine. And then she picks Yuzuki up and puts her through the damn floor with a power bomb. And I was like, are are you okay? She spiked Yuzuki. Like I was legitimately scared. I was like, the match just started. And I just watched her head bounce off the floor. And again, it plays to Yuzuki kind of being a psycho in all the right ways. She just gets up and acts like it's like, yeah, that was fine. That was fine. Way to start the match. And from there, it is just like uh, pure adrenaline in some ways, it feels like for both of them. Yuzuki just is so unwavering in her confidence that I think that's what makes her so good. Um, you know, does she hit the spiral tap perfectly? No. But does
No.
every part of her body land on her opponent? Sure does.
Oh yeah.
So do I believe it every time? I sure do. Um and I think SYOKO Kashino, like this was the ultimate trial. It's like, okay, we have someone here who is on she's on the older side. She's like 37 or something. But we can only win from this. It's a win-win. It's either okay, we saw what it was, filled the void. We have two great matches coming after this, so we're not really worried about that. Or she does well, and
Mhm.
you can see a future for her. Like I said, the match isn't perfect. It's far from it. But that's kind of like the beauty of it. I think wrestling can be too perfect sometimes. And
Mhm.
this felt like a kind of like a fight in many ways. Like this was just kind of
Yeah.
like I said, it was raw to the very end. And I don't know. I just loved it. I'm not gonna walk away being like, wow, it's one of the best matches of the year or anything. Um, but I just had so much fun watching these two pretty much beat the hell out of each other. To the point where I was like, I didn't know Shayoko had that in her.
Hmm.
And I was the one believing. They just went down a completely different lane, and I really had fun with it.
As did I. I really enjoyed this. This was one of the big kind of question marks, probably outside of the actual mystery opponent we had on this show, with the biggest question mark of the night. In terms of course, SYOKO Koshino, like you said, we've seen her as Flying Penguin. Although, based on the way she kicked this match off, I'm starting to believe that maybe they're not actually this. This isn't the Flying Penguin I once knew. You know, so maybe some investigation needed there. But yeah, so seeing her elevated into this spot so early into the kind of her the start of her full time run in Marigold, and also seeing Yuzuki lead a match with such a kind of
Yes.
unknown quantity, gave two kind of different elements to this that I was a little bit unsure of. Of course, we're both massive believers of
Oh yeah.
Victoria Yuzuki, so I didn't
She's the
have much
young
doubt
Marigold
on that side
roster,
of things.
like she's the young Marigold member that's like kind of graduated from it because she's
Yeah,
just so
she's just
far ahead.
undeniable, you know.
Yeah.
and and she has been since the moment she kind of debuted in Stardom. I remember us both raving.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I remember you and me recorded about it, like I feel like you and me were talking about it within, like, days of the debut.
oh yeah, it's I was hyped. I was hyped. But when these prospects come around, like we said, we spoke about Seri and Shino. You know when they're going to be a huge deal. I remember when the departures from Stardom were announced, and Yuzuki was one of them. It was a huge deal, both for Stardom losing her and Marigold picking her up to kick things off. But yes, I really enjoyed this match for what it was. I was surprised by how much SYOKO Koshino brought it in the early portions. The power bomb was very scary, but also incredibly beast. But once the kind of switch flipped with Yuzuki, she brought out that ruthless streak. This thing really picked up to a next level. And I do like I like the comments about this not being perfect. And I think there's a kind of element to a lot of Yuzuki's
Yeah,
big time title matches. As much as she is incredibly talented, one of the
yeah.
my favorite wrestlers on this roster, she has this edge to her, this kind of slight imperfection that I actually think improves her game.
Mhm.
There's a ruthless edge to it that not everything looks, some, like you mentioned, kind of if everything looks flawless, then sometimes it loses a little bit of the spark that you need in some wrestling matches. I think she brings that each and every
Yeah,
time. You saw that here, the ruthless kicks and strikes, and just the kind of dominant streak that she kind of switched
yeah.
to as the match progressed. So if that's the way she's going to continue with this white belt reign, then I am very much looking forward to seeing who steps up in the coming months to Victoria Yuzuki, because I think we're going to be in for some great matches. And for SYOKO Koshino, I think we have another fun member to the roster. It's going to be interesting to see what's next for her too. I
Yeah.
think this experiment was a success in terms of what you said. Exactly, not going to be a match of the year candidate, but you've seen her showcase herself on the big stage. Of course, there'll be a lot more eyes on a show like this than your average, Marigold tour show. So if people
Mhm.
become fans of show, I think she definitely made a couple of fans today.
Yeah.
So hopefully, she's another one who can continue to progress, and we'll see where she slots in as the coming week go by. But the main story here, Victoria Yuzuki, is exceptional. Continues to be one of the highlights of this promotion, and long may she reign.
The thing about Yuzuki too is like, and this goes back to a lot of her main rookie year. I know like a lot of people used to try to like attack things she did and be like, "Oh, I don't know about this, I don't know about that." She's always been fearless, and I
Yeah,
think wrestling misses that. The the thing about Yuzuki is she's a fearless pro wrestler. She's going to go out there, full confidence, fearlessness that I'm gonna do everything I set out to do. If it goes well, great. If it doesn't, great. I don't care. I'm gonna keep going. I think so many times you see in wrestling, like if there's a slip up or something, people kind of like mentally get
there's a
affected by it.
confusion, right? There's a
Yeah,
awkwardness to the match the way it progresses.
right. Like in this match, she's going to for the victory shootings, which is like the grounded spiral tap kind of thing. Instead of hitting it normal, she kind of just lands on Shiyoko with both of her knees both time. And I'm like, that still looked like it hurt. I just want that to be known. Um, like, and then she goes for the spiral tap and hits it and lands fully on Kushino. And it's like, okay, see, like she just keeps going. And I think that's what part, like you said so perfectly, that's part of the appeal with her. Um, uh, in many ways, she is like the young demon. She just keeps going. She just it does her so well because I think we've seen it so many times now. And I had said, through her title reign to this point, not including the fantastic Mai Sakurai match, everything was comfortable for her up until this
Mhm.
point. Misamatsu and Ryoseto, 2 matches she has had before. 2 matches she had when she was the Superfly champion. Those are comfortable. She knows what those look like. It was this match with her leading that I was like, "Okay, what does this look like?" And for me, it was a success, and like you said, long may she reign. I think she is, well on her way to having arguably the best United National title reign we've seen. She's on a great start, thus far, and having this match with SYOKO that was, just incredibly entertaining is as good of a point as she can have. She did not get a challenger, though, so she was, left waiting,
Mhm.
seeing who will be her next challenger. And I mean, for what it's worth, she got 2 defenses before Miku Aono had her first. So, she's a little bit ahead of the curve anyways in terms of defenses, so I don't have a problem with that. But let's get to your semi-main event and the match that, of course, I and many others had a big circle on. It was the GHC Women's Championship match for the first time since 2020. It would be Takumi Iroha versus Mayu Iwatani. Um, I said in the preview, I've said many times, the 2020 matches that these two had were my top 2 matches of that year. Not that
Mhm.
I was, like, tracking in full force or anything yet, but they were my favorite 2 matches of the year, and it wasn't really close. I think that their chemistry, no matter what you think maybe of current day Takumi, I know people are up and down with her, and understandably so. It wasn't gonna matter. It just wasn't gonna matter. Like, there was not a world where these 2 were gonna not step into the ring and do something special
Mhm.
because they have the history, they have the experience, and they have the Mayu Iwatani, who, fun fact, just is the cheat code of all cheat codes, I
Yeah.
think, in pro wrestling these days. You put her in a big match, it can be with Takumi, it can be with Utami, it can be with Yuzuki, it can be with Hummingbird. It's going to be at a higher level than your expectations probably have it, and I think that's incredible. And considering, we're 6 years removed essentially from the last time they faced off, 5 years, I
Mhm.
guess, from the second match that year. But we're so far away. These 2 have dramatically changed. Takumi Iroha has gone through not 1, but 2, like, dramatic knee surgeries. Mayu Iwatani has just, well, she's been Mayu, but she has been through a lot as well personally, and she's changed a lot, and yet, like I said, they step into the ring and they just put on a show. Um, I had said this after my, victory lap of she's champion, IWGP, GHC, all that. I had said this that out of a lifetime of all-time great performances in her career, this is a top of the line Mayu Iwatani performance.
Mhm.
She went out there to suffer for better or worse. Like, she went out there, I'm going to essentially get destroyed for so much of this match. Everything that Takumi hits, it's going to be a struggle for me to come back from.
Mhm.
And I think some of it was just true. Like, she got pushed down the stairs, um, which she loves to do. And I said this to my friend during the show. I was like, I don't know how many people would sign up to get pushed down the stairs multiple times a year, but it seems like Mayu is number one on the list of whoever is willing to do that. So it's insane. And she does it in her matches. So, like, yeah, I just got pushed down the stairs and then I have to go and wrestle 20 minutes. That is what she did on this show. I think the beauty, though, of this match and what this is, and I think it can be one of the best matches of the year, like, by the end of the year. I think people will maybe look at it that way because of the epic proportions and how epic it felt. Is that Mayu doesn't do underdog much anymore. Doesn't have
Mhm.
to. She shouldn't. She's the greatest of all time. She's the icon. She's the top dog, right? She's all these different things. But when she gets to face a Nanai or Takumi, I look at that Nanai match as that as well. It's it just brings back the old Mayu Iwatani that myself and so many others fell in love with, of the underdog who is going to do everything in their power to overcome, and everything's so smart, everything's so well done, to the point where you're just in awe of her ability. And I think that's kinda where I always just have her on another level from others, is that so much of Mayu's career kind of plays to what we were talking about last match of, like, not everything looks pretty, not everything looks perfect, because it's not. Mayu's never been, and she's said this, I'm never perfect. That's it's the
Mhm.
beauty of why she's so great. And so much of this match, you could just see her struggling and trying to get to the next level and the next level. And Takumi is just never ending. She is ruthless in her attacks. You know, as the match goes on, I think you see kind of the old Takumi come out of, like, I am going to kick you as hard as I can, and you are going to deal with it. And they just go for all these big time moves. The Rana off the top, where they're just sitting there, they're teasing a power bomb, and then at the last second, Mayu rolls through. I was like, the fact that you're still doing that is absolutely insanity. And she might have hit her head, because she instantly held her head when she
Yeah.
landed. And she was limping for a lot of this match. When she goes up for the frog splash at one point, she holds her knee. She's like, "Oh my god." It's like, but that's the beauty of the match for me. It's the little selling, right? It's the,
Mhm.
this is not easy for me. And more often than not, I think when she doesn't get to hit the best poison Rana ever move, that she goes for in the corner, and she may slip, it plays to the match and the fatigue and the struggle and what she's gone through. Like, this match, she shouldn't have hit that move because of everything she went through. So after, she falls and wipes out, it's nothing bad. Her and Takumi
Mhm.
go into something that I think was more fitting for the end, and it was what made this so great. Is, she hits the dragon suplex, and she hits two big time moonsaults where she just puts everything into it and pins her. This is a fantastic title match. It's the best GHC Women's title match by far. It's everything I could have asked for and more out of these two. I don't know, if we were to put this with the other two and call it a trilogy, then hey, it's one of the
Mhm.
great trilogies
Oh
I've
yeah.
ever seen. Um, that's a lot of me talking. I'll talk more after the fact, but, Jamie, how'd you enjoy the match?
Well, I'll kick things off. I don't think I'm going to break any new ground, especially on this channel, by saying this, but Mayu Iwatani's just the best, isn't she? She's just the
Yeah,
best. I mean, unbelievable performance. You kind of spoke a lot about the struggle of Mayu Iwatani in this match, and while of course in the last couple of years, just because of how exceptionally she is as a wrestler, we've seen her in the more dominant role. I still think to this day she is probably the best wrestler in the world at portraying the struggle
yeah.
of a wrestling match. And you saw that on full display here. Iroha was super dominant, relentless with her strikes. This was her at the top of her game, Takumi
Yeah.
Iroha, and I'm a fan of Takumi Iroha. I think some people are a little harsh on her sometimes. She's had a lot of injury issues,
Oh, yeah.
and I
As
do think
bad
she's
of injuries she could have for the way she wrestles.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think the level she's still able to produce, I think speaks to her ability. And while she is, she's certainly up and down with her performances, as is natural with the kind of issues she's faced. I thought she had a pretty solid 2025. Of course, she was involved in the Marigold
Yeah.
Marvelous rivalry, and of course, the team with Suri Spark Rush was a big highlight
Oh,
of
yeah.
last year. And I think the way that she's kicked off here 2026 with this hopefully means we're in for another good, strong year of for Takumi Iroha. But Mayu Iwatani, unbelievable, unbelievable performance. I like that you brought up the failed attempt at the poison rana from the top. I thought that played into this perfectly.
Yeah.
I think it kind of encapsulated the essence of this match in terms of how much she struggled, and I like that she didn't get to hit it, and she had to go down a different route. But this was just um, so fun to watch. Both at the kind of peak of their powers, really, in terms of the roles that they're both meant to play in wrestling. Of course, we've both said, the dominant side of Mayu is incredibly valuable. Um, to Marigold, and we're going to see that more than we see this, just because of there are so few that can take Mayu to this level, just because of how high she is up on the ladder at this stage. But when we get it, it is always exceptional to watch. I will never get tired of watching these two wrestle. This more than lived up to expectations, and kind of course, it's been a long time since we saw their previous encounters. But if you're familiar with those, then this absolutely lived up to it. And if you haven't seen those, then if you enjoyed this, you should absolutely go and check those out, because they're exceptional. Mayu, of course, being the all-time great that she is, has so many exceptional rivals throughout her career. Takumi Iroha is right up there in terms of the quality that she's able to bring out. So I was delighted we got to see this on this show. Of course, Mayu Iwatani picks up that GHC Women's Championship. She's now, of course, the first to have IWGP and the GHC. So another accolade for the greatest of all time. And a very, very strong start to the year for the GOAT.
And surely, I don't know who will be the next. And, you know, I think that's like one of the fascinating things of winning both of those belts. It's like, I don't know who will be the next. I think like Sari was probably your best choice, which, hey, listen, if you know me, you know, I'm going to keep asking for it. We're celebrating the 15th anniversary of those two after all, and I'm going to keep pushing for it. I will say this on the Takumi front. I think she rises to the occasion when she knows what time it is. And when I saw her decked out in the full red, which I feel like it's been a while since I've seen her decked out in the full like red marvelous Chigusa Nagayo red, you know, she's wore like green and silver and all these different things. I was like, oh, okay, this is it. And yeah, I just think this match is sensational. In terms of the story that they played to, the brutality they were willing to go, and the exhaustion of it in many ways. You know, even when Mayu looks like she's got nothing left, she is surviving. She is hitting the next big move. There's no wrestler like her for me when I watch her in a big match where it's like every little thing you're just kind of like on the edge of your seat for. It's just Mayu doesn't have a formula. I think she's like a very unique wrestler in that I don't think she has the formula that some just can always go to, if that makes sense. Like wrestlers have formulas and they're great formulas, and it's always a good thing. This formula she doesn't have to go to ever anymore. So it's like I'm watching a new match in so many different ways. You know, like she's willing to go to her opponent's formula. I think that's better, and she'll morph it in her own vision rather than you're gonna follow my formula and that'll be that. And I think that's kind of the beauty of why this match was so good, and why I think, you know, it's gonna be incredible. And I said to myself when this is over, I was like, man, this is match number 1 of her 15th anniversary year. Match number 1. That's crazy.
We're in for a very special year.
And like,
yeah.
I look at Mayu's opponents in her history, because you brought this up, and where Takumi ranks. She is like truly as high as you probably can be for someone that's not in the same company as her for their peaks, right? They weren't in the same company, but they were able to cross over and have their matches that they did. And by the way, people have to remember the first one of 2020 wasn't supposed to happen. That was supposed to be Mayu versus Sari. But it happened that way and it played off so beautifully. And I think to myself, like, who else in current wrestling? Obviously, you know, Mayu Io did what they did. But who else in current wrestling is like a perfect dance partner for Mayu at this stage of the game? And thinking back to last year, I was like, well, there is one person, and then she happened to show up. And she was so happy to show up, and Mayu was like, I'm so tired. It was
this immediately is now my favorite moment of the year thus far.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like Utami emerging and Mayu just
everything about this was so good. The entire post match, like Maya's like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I just won. Give me a moment, please. And Utami's just so happy. And I bring it up because I think there is like something so fascinating about these two's relationship with one
Mhm.
another, because I think it's like kind of overlooked. These two love each other. I go
Yeah.
back to when they faced off for the first time in years, and they're just like sitting there, like, yeah, we just beat each other's asses for 15 minutes. I don't know. And then they just like having fun in the middle of the ring. And then you see this one, and it's just like the entire segment is just like Maya being like, please, no, 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 I don't want to. Like, yeah, I'll face you, but does it have to be for the title? And I think the best part of this whole thing, and we'll talk about like the actual news that came from this.
Mhm.
But she was like, I just got this one. You can have this one though. She was like, she just brings up the Superfly. She's like, do you want this one? And then Tommy just looks at her stomach. He's like, well, I'll try.
Yeah.
It's like, and I was like, I like the idea that Utami was like, well, I want the GHC, but like, I'll take the other one. You know, I can try to get there. And that's kind of the beauty of their relationship. And I think that's why them leading Marigold's so much fun. You know, because the world champion is stoic and
Mhm.
kind of in her own bag. And these two are just out here doing bits after Mayu just went through a classic with Takumi Iroha. And Utami just is like smiling and smiling. Hey, we want to face off? And then ultimately it's all leading to the anniversary of Mayu Iwatani. Mayu Iwatani's anniversary match will be one-on-one with Utami Hayashishita, which I think is a wonderful anniversary match of that. And it's pretty incredible to think about, because Utami's big moment when she won the World of Stardom Championship for the first time was against Mayu Iwatani. You know, Mayu was the one that was there to put her over, and they have been connected ever since. You know, they have fought for seemingly everything under the sun. They fought for the World of Stardom title. They fought for the IWGP Women's title multiple times. They fought in
Mhm.
the tournament. People may forget, to crown the first champion, and then they faced off again later within Mayu's record reign, which, by the way, I don't think is ever going to be touched based on how that title's going. Um, but that's more of a tomorrow problem.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, they face off for the first time in a few years in the Dream Star this year, and it's just sensational. I think arguably the best match of the entire tournament. And now they're going to face off here on her anniversary show for the very likely for the GHC women's title. But hey, we gotta wait for the committee on that one.
Mhm.
Which, by the way, love that the belt has a committee. I think that's
Yeah.
hysterical. I think it's very sports vibe of like, actually, we got to wait on the committee here. So I'll just face
Yeah.
you, and we'll see what happens. Well, I don't even know how to ask you a question about this, so I'm just gonna like let you just share your thoughts on everything about this.
Yeah, I loved everything about this. As I mentioned, the initial moment when she appears, like I said, is now my favorite moment of 2026 thus far. Just look at this, incredible. Um, yeah, it got a good laugh out of me. And then, of course, everything the setup for the anniversary match, as was the case when I talked about Mayu and Takumi. And I know you just touched on it yourself. I'll never get tired of seeing these two wrestle, and I think it's an exceptional choice of opponent for that show. If the committee decides it's for the belt, then even better. We're going to kick things off with this new GHC reign with what will undoubtedly be an exceptional start if it's anything like their previous matches. So it'll be incredibly fun to see them go back at it. I do also love the committee element to this. I think that this is what we're lacking in wrestling these days. We need more of this. You know, we need more committees and belts. You know, this is.
Naturally really funny too, because I was like, wait a minute, Nosawa was calling this match. You could have just asked him, probably. He would have been like, yeah. And nope. They're like,
who
just let me rest.
Who do we think's on this committee then? Who from Noah's on this committee? Let's break down the committee. It's got to be
Um,
No Sours in the mix.
Marufuji's gotta be on it, right?
Marufuji. Muto's still about somewhere, right? He's got to be.
Oh yeah,
He's always
Muta
there.
just does this.
Yeah.
They asked,
He's,
he was like, yeah, we're good.
yes. Yeah. I like
Kano's
that.
on the committee. I gotta believe Kano's on the committee.
Oh yeah.
Or at least he wants to be on the committee.
Yeah. So I think we're going to kick this rain off. to an exceptional start. If it reaches any of the heights of the IWGP reign that Mayu had, then we're going to have
Yeah.
one of the best championship reigns of the year and maybe beyond,
Yeah.
depending on how long she keeps hold of that title.
Which
So
reminds me, I do have to make the joke. She's getting her first GHC women's title match like 5 months sooner than she got her first IWGP women's title defense. So,
it's crazy. It's
which by the way was also against Utami.
yeah. So we've
Fun
come.
little fact.
It's full circle. I do like the hopefully this is a continued emphasis on this the GHC belt and we see it a little more regularly. I think it being so
No one needs a real champion. So
yeah, of course. I mean, I didn't catch a great deal of it, but their show to kick off the new year didn't exactly look like a slam dunk, to be honest. So it's nice that we have a real top champion on the arc these days. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Of course, when Kogi picked up that belt, she got the injury and it kind of offset the direction of this title. But I think now you could possibly ask for a better champion than Mayu. So hopefully this is the start of incredibly strong reign. I'm looking forward to seeing where she takes it.
yeah, I'm very excited. A fantastic match. My favorite of the year so far out of
Oh yeah.
3 days. Not that there was a lot, but it was always one on the marker that could be one of the very best to start things off, and they lived up to it. So that's all you can really ask for. Next up, just a reminder, 15th anniversary will be on the 24th. Now we now have Utami versus Mayu set for Icon Forever, as well as the Twin Star title match. So looking forward to both of those. I'm sure they'll continue to put some big stuff on for that show, especially since she has a number of her trainees in many ways on that show and in waiting. So, we'll see the Yuzukis and the Komomos probably get some sort of big match as well. But let's get to our main event of the evening. That was, of course, the Marigold World Championship match, Miku Aono's first defense, and that being against Mai Sakurai 1 year after Mai Sakurai defeated her for the United National Championship. The match, I said, had to be the main event for various reasons. I think that they built it up to be the main event. But I also think that the importance of putting the world title in the main event was second to none. The one thing that I think did also hurt Utami's reign is that she never got to main event outside of when she won the belt. And understandably so. You had Nanai's retirement, and then you had Mayu versus Io. No offense to Tommy, you should not have main evented either of those shows.
They had to close the shows, of course.
Yeah, but this was another opportunity where I think they could have pivoted to a different main event, and they didn't, and I'm very happy about it. There's so much to discuss, I think, in terms of the fact that Mai Sakurai, after all these years, is in a world championship match after everything that I think we've all been through with Mai Sakurai, the ups, the downs. And not only is she in a world title match, she deserves to be in the world title match. I think that's maybe the biggest point of it all. I've spoke first for pretty much everything. So you know what, Jamie, we've made it to the last match. What were your thoughts on Miku Aono versus Mai Sakurai, which I call, Marigold's best rivalry through their first, year and a half, almost 2 years of existence?
Yeah, so to kick things off, I love that they went for this on this show as Miku's first defense. I think the white belt match on this show last year was one of my favorite matches of the early portion of 2025. I thought it was an exceptional white belt title match. So I was very much looking forward to seeing how this one followed up on that. And of course, Mai Sakurai, just speaking on her before we get into the actual match itself, as we both know, her progression has been kind of remarkable over the past couple of years. When she first joined Stardom, originally in her Cosmic Angels era, she was, one of the greenest on the roster. We kind of saw her game evolve gradually as she joined Donna Del Mondo, and of course the character work sort of came first. And then she gets to Marigold, and there's a switch flipped in terms of her in-ring work. It really sort of, I think the Julia singles match she had really kind of sparked that flame, and she's been kind of onwards and upwards ever since. of course, I really enjoyed her reign with the United National Belt, and this, getting this opportunity to main event a pay per view, to kick the year off before the red belt is kind of testament to the progression she's had, and she absolutely more than deserves to be in this position. And I hope that we see a lot more of her in the main event scene in Marigold. I think she's going to be such a valuable player. Of course, Mirai departed leaves another void in the main event scene, and I think she's stepping up. Of course, her former tag team partner there. So I think she's absolutely ready for these opportunities as they continue to come. A little look ahead. The WrestlePurist Awards, of course, I've been counting the votes. She did exceptionally well in the most improved last year. She's going to be in the top 5 again this year. So, and I thought she improved more the last time around. I think this year was more just kind of solidifying her in the main event space. I think her big jumps came last year, but it's kind of testament to just how much of a progression it is from where she kind of kicked off originally. The match itself, I enjoyed for the most part. I thought it was very brutal in parts. Of course, the very scary table spot. Of course, Mai dropping Miku right on her dome on the
while the table's breaking. By the way, they just were like, "We're doing this."
we're just gonna do it anyway.
It was the most Julia-esque moment I've seen in this promotion since Julia left. Like, I was like, this is what she would do. She'd be like, whatever. We'll still do it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring up Julie, because I think as I touched on, that was kind of the match for Mai that kind of sparked her rise, and I think she has an element of Julia to her, and certainly Julia at her peak in terms of the chaotic brawling elements, and kind of you like just like that kind of table spot kind of summarize it, the level she's willing to go in these matches, and I think we saw that. I thought it kind of lost its way in parts. I wasn't sure if Miku was hurt from the table spot. I thought, I thought they eventually came back around.
That. Yeah.
Sorry. She seemed okay after the match, so maybe it was just like a temporary thing. But I thought by the time we got to the closing stage, they sort of cut back around, and I thought the finish from Miku dropping Mai right on her dome was another example of Mai just being kind of crazy, taking that. I
was like, damn, that's a receipt.
Yeah, if I've ever seen one, absolutely. So potentially I need to rewatch to see where it ranks against their first one, but I enjoyed this one a lot. I thought it was a great way to kick off.
This one's very imperfect. I'm also gonna rewatch it, mostly because like I'm coming off the Takumi Mayu match, and I'm zonked to begin with, and then they like do the table spot, and I'm just petrified. I was like, is she okay? Like that, none of that looked good. None of that looked safe. It definitely looked like it hurt. I'll tell you that. So them going for it. But to what you were saying in terms of, I think in so many ways what Mai Sakurai has become, a big part of that is Miku Aono and what these two are able to do together. It's a fascinating match to like look back at in my head, mind you, like on like 5 hours sleep tops, and like the show ended, I went to sleep, I woke up, we're doing this. I think for me it's a match that has all the brutality, has all the physicality that you kind of ask for. It's just the flow certainly got broken up after that table spot. It's like, okay, that hurt, and I think Mai Sakurai kind of showed it on her face when Miku was getting checked on. She was like, "Oh, I don't know about that one." But I think you make the good point as well. It's like they got back into it. Like they eventually got back to what they wanted to do. And I just want to say I love the new Miku Aono gear. There's something about a champion wearing gold that just moves me tremendously. It's like, yeah, I am the champion. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, especially the just the look of the belt itself. She looks like she's matching that belt. She feels like the real champion.
I feel like we've said it a few times. We say it like all everyone says this, but like that belt was made for Miku Aono. Like look at it,
Yeah.
and then you know look at how she reigns. Yeah, I don't know where this match that's the fascinating thing about this match. I don't know where it goes in their rivalry.
Mhm.
Because they've had such a good rivalry. And I think for me, it's just gonna depend on rewatch. But I think it was as successful of a title defense as she could have had. Like the match was good, if not very good. It was different, it was physical, and it was kind of the exclamation point on like, I am going to lead this promotion this year. That is what I am
Mhm.
here to do. And she does it and a lot of people expected, myself included, that she was going to win with the STF. That kind of was being teased, but instead she wins with the glorious driver because she only wins with her opponent's finishers. And that's so sick, by the way. Like the fact that we've never really had a main event wrestler, it's like, I'm gonna beat you with your move and you're gonna like it, is insane. Like she beat Nanai with hers to retire her. She beat Utami with the BT bomb to beat her. Now she's hitting the glorious driver on Mai Sakurai and doing so in nasty fashion to defeat her. Like beautiful stuff. And there's now this world where your top 3 champions, if you wanna include the GHC women's title or the Superfly, doesn't really matter, um, continue to be Miku Aono, Victoria Yuzuki, and Mayu Iwatani, and that is as strong of a trio as you can have, and I feel like my main takeaway these days when I watch a Marigold show is, like, I always, for the most part, walk away happy. I
Yeah.
just, like, I'm happy I sat down and watched that show because there's so many different parts. You're gonna have your big main events, superb matches. You're gonna have your development rookie type matches, and then you're gonna have your mid card that kind of like is a mix of the two in many ways, right?
Mhm.
Um, and this show, I think this was a better show than last year's First Dream. I think that was my big takeaway. Was I think this kicks off their year better than last year's, and last year's was when they crowned a new world champion and a new United National champion, right? All the title changes, but I think this was kind of like the perfect proof of how much they've grown as a promotion on a
Yeah.
year to year comparison, and doing so, mind you, with a show that only really has Takumi as the outsider. It does so much good for them, and I don't know how you don't kind of go into the rest of 2026 after this match, after this show, excited for what is to come in the world of Marigold.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the big thing with this show is the kind of lack of leaning on outsiders, like I said, outside of Takumi, really in the big spots, and it's testament to the progression of the roster as a whole. There's so many exciting young talents, but also the kind of middle of the pack that are continuing to evolve. Like we said, we spoke throughout this um, show talking about Chihigoto, Koki's back, Natsumi Shozuki's back, of course, a big addition. Mai Sakurai evolving into the wrestler she is. Miku Aono finally reaching the top of the promotion. And you're just continuing to see the evolution of so many of these talents, and it's what makes Marigold my favorite promotion to follow. At the moment, there's just every match you get to see sort of the next stage of whoever you're watching, and there's always improvement and development. So it makes it a really fascinating promotion to follow. And I thought this was a home run in that regard in terms of kind of for some stamping their mark as a main event talent that deserve to be there, for the rookies, of course, showing why they have such a bright future ahead of them, and then of course for others in the middle of the pack, why they continue to deserve to get more and more opportunities up the card. So a home run all around, I thought.
Yeah,
A really strong way to kick off 2026
yeah,
for Marigold, and of
Eh,
course,
eh,
looking forward to what's to come.
yeah. And shout out, I think the big five are kind of in the front now. That's kind of
Hmm.
where we're going, and
Yeah.
excites me because I think Tsuruyama Yoka should be challenging for the world title at Shine Forever. I'm not waiting longer. I'm getting personally antsy. I'm like, we just got to give her the shot. And
Yeah.
especially on that show, year later after Nanai got retired by Miku, it's like it writes itself. We
Hmm.
got to do it. I also random point about this end of the show picture. I love that Mai Sakurai was like, no, I'm not. I'm no. See you later. I
Yeah.
lost. I'm pissed. I'm out of here. Um, and one other note from the post match, in case you want to just a fun thing to look forward to on the January 12th. Look at Utami. She was on cloud nine last night. I told you when the moment Jiro showed up into the entrance, she was just like, all right, well, that's my cue to have some fun. Um, the January 12th, so they have two Corkins this coming month. A lot of Corkins between all these promotions in January. I don't know why. Like Stardom has four, which is three plus like their pay-per-view is right at the beginning of
Mhm.
February. They have two. I don't know how this works out. But my point is they got to build something big for both of them. And while the
Mhm.
anniversary show, I think, sells itself, they've already loaded it up. The 12th, the one on the 12th, they needed something big, and they have given you something big on that show. It will be Utami Hayashishita teaming with Miku Aono to take on Mayu Iwatani and Victoria Yuzuki. Because hell yeah, that's why. There's no rhyme or reason. I'm just into it. I'm not going to complain. It's the
Yeah.
super tag. That's what they called it. So I, I'm looking forward to it, and I think all the matches they set up on this show was also very exciting, which I think is a big part of what I want from a big show. Is yeah, you deliver and all that, but I also want you to set up why are people coming back? What are people going to come back for?
Mhm.
And that's their next show. For those who don't know, they're off until the 12th, so they'll be back with that big time super tag main event. Um, and yeah, I'm just thrilled, man. I think this was just such a good show overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to this tag quite a lot. I think it's a very fun, um,
Yeah.
a very fun matchup for that Korakuen show. Of course, you're going to get a little bit of a preview of Utami and Mayu. It's always fun to see those two mix it up. You've got Marigold's top two champions in the mix, and also I always enjoy seeing Mayu with Yuzuki. I think
Yeah.
there's so much value now in her with Komomo in terms of the
Yes.
development of her, and Yuzuki, like we've kind of both touched on, has sort of graduated that young
Mhm.
Marigold class, and she now feels like a established part of the top end of this promotion. So you'll probably see it slightly less and sort of lean more into the Komomo as her kind of as her kind of protege. But Yuzuki feels absolutely a part of that group.
Yep.
Under the tutelage of Maya. So seeing those two team up again is always going to be fun. So another thing to look forward to in Marigold, and another one that I'm very, very much excited for.
Hell of a first month for Mayu, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Starts we mean
I'm
to go on. Starts as we mean to go on.
yeah, I'm certainly not complaining. I greatly appreciate the efforts here to kick off year 15 as big as possible.
Hmm.
Before we get out of here and just share our final thoughts, I do ask everyone, if you haven't already, make sure to vote in the 5-star Joshi Awards if you haven't already. We've nearly doubled the voter count from last year, I think, to like the exact number. It's the most votes we've ever had, so I appreciate everyone that has taken part already. But voting doesn't close for another 3 days. It closes on the 6th. The award show will air on the 7th here on the YouTube channel. So make sure to vote if you haven't. Fourth annual. We're keeping it going. Vote for Wrestler of the Year, vote for Rookie of the Year, vote for Tag Team of the Year, Show of the Year, Promotion of the Year, all that good stuff. And make sure your voice is heard. But Jamie, before we get out of here, after it's your return to recording, return to everything. Any final thoughts regarding the show? Just being back and what this year looks like, maybe in terms of just Joshi as a whole for you, what you're looking forward to.
Yeah, I think it was a really great start. I think it was the perfect show for me to get back into
Yeah.
the swing of things for, and I think we kind of both knew that that would be the case ahead of time. That's why we kind of went with this one. It gave me a lot to be excited for, and I think that's why Marigold is, like I said, my favorite promotion to follow. Um, it's just so exciting seeing these talents develop. But in terms of kind of the year ahead, of course, I'm locked in for Wrestle Kingdom tomorrow. I've been giddy all week. It's my favorite time of the year. Of course, Hiroshi Tanahashi's retirement. I'm very, very excited, but also sad to watch that. But looking ahead for Joshi, I think it'll be a really interesting year. Like I said, of course, we touched on Marigold so much throughout this show. I think Stardom are in an interesting place. I think so much of 2025 for them kind of hinged on getting Saya Kamatani the Tokyo Sports MVP. They got exactly what they wanted, and now we'll see what's next in the kind of progression for them. Of course, the kind of long-term ambition for them seems to be a Tokyo Dome show down the line. I think they've done a good job of building towards that this year in terms of the attendances and building Sire up as such a huge star in the scene. But what more can they do? And who do they build next to potentially take that belt off her? Right, so we've got Starlight Kid coming up, like the next challenger. I'm very high on the idea of potentially Natsupoi getting involved in the mix. But there's a couple of different baby faces you could build there. And of course, there are a bunch of other talents I'm looking forward to following there. Rena is one of my favorites from Stardom, so seeing what she gets up to next. So it'll be exciting to see. And of course, across the wider scene, I think seeing what Chihiro Hashimoto gets up to next now that Yu's officially retired, I think will be interesting. No more Team 200 kg. We'll see a lot more of singles Hash moving forward. That'll be interesting to follow, and just continuing to see the young talent that develops across the space. I think it's the strongest scene in all of wrestling in terms of the production of new talent, and it's been what's carrying the scene for a number of years now. So long may it continue, and hopefully for me it means that I'm around a lot more. Hopefully this is the first of a couple appearances on this channel at the very least for 2026. I'm very glad to be back, so I appreciate you for bringing me on. But it's been a great a very enjoyable return to podcast, and a return to really sinking my teeth into these big shows as we kick off the year.
Yeah, getting the dust off the microphone, things like that. Well, thank you for joining me. Thank you for taking part in this review. It's always nice to change things up and get a guest on here, especially because I think I'm recording still like 4 times in the next week. So it'll be it's a wonderful change up.
Very busy time.
Yeah, it is, and I won't complain about it. I love this time of year. It's the best time of the year, I think, to be a pro wrestling fan. And especially, joshi fan with all the big shows that happen in kind of like 1 week. Before we get out of here, where can the people find you? Do you have anything going on? All that good stuff.
Yeah, right. Oh, here we go. Jamie Ross at Jamie Ross WP on Twitter. I don't tweet a great deal, but follow me anyway. Maybe I'll start tweeting. Who knows? Other than that, of course, like I said, first podcast appearance in a while. I haven't got a great deal going on, but hopefully in the future, more appearances. And also the WrestlePurist Awards, the official polls will be out relatively soon. Of course, go and vote in Scott's Awards, of course, as well, like we said. But a more broad kind of whole of wrestling wide awards. We've already counted our nominations, so we'll put out the polls of 5 nominees for each category. There are a couple of joshi contenders in the mix on a few different awards. Like I mentioned before, Mai Sakurai, I'm pretty sure, is going to be up there for most improved. Saya Kamatani will, of course, be up there for wrestler of the year. And there'll be a couple more. Stardom, I think, are probably in the mix for promotion of the year. Last time I checked the counting. So if you feel inclined to vote for them, then absolutely go for it. But keep an eye out for those potentially this week or the beginning of next week. They could be going up. But other than that, that's probably it for me. So thank you once again, Scott, for having me on. It's always a pleasure being here on the 5-Star Joe Show.
Happy to always have you. Before I get out of here, I'll just do final plugs. Make sure you check out the Sariyama Yoka first anniversary video. That was a lot of fun. Talking about her year in review, and then looking forward at what 2026 might look like. So make sure you check out that video. If you haven't either, check out the Stardom Dream Queendom review that's also up on the channel. I tell you to look at the first Dream preview, but there's no reason to. We've gotten to the end. So thank you, everyone. Once again, thank you for all the support. Thank you for the continued support. In 2026, we'll keep bringing some of the best content possible. For Jamie, I'm Scott, and we'll see you next time right here on the channel. So long. See you later. Bye-bye.